Good morning, and thank you very much for inviting me. It's really wonderful to be part of this global firestorm and to have this global firestorm here in Calgary. As you heard, our conversation today is about mindsets that will unleash action in social enterprise globally. And I've been assigned this title of respecting and rejecting trade-offs. And my confession is I really struggled with this title because it feels like a defensive mindset. It feels like a wait and see mindset, like an us and them mindset, when in fact what the world needs us to be in is a proactive, forward-looking mindset. And so instead of looking at each other preparing to negotiate, I think it's important for us to focus our energies on deciding what kind of future we want and how we're going to work together to create that future. Because there's no question that creating that future will take everything we've got, the best of all of our different perspectives. So let me try and reframe this mindset question, and particularly looking through an innovation lens and using fairly traditional innovation frameworks. And under three simple topics. The first is the innovation imperative, or we're all in this together. Secondly, global innovation ecosystems are changing drastically, or the operating system has already changed. And finally, innovating the future, or what are our choices and what is the mindset that's required? But let's start with why is innovation relevant to this conversation? Well, quite simply put, innovation fuels human progress. It always has. It's how we do important things better, allowing our societies to thrive economically and socially. It shapes the options that our children and grandchildren will have in their futures. No trade-offs required here. It's a simple human imperative. But innovation also matters for two other reasons, both very important to social enterprise. First, the very tangible near-term reason, and to quote Peter Drucker again, innovation is the very specific instrument of entrepreneurship. The bulk of new jobs in modern economies come from so-called new high-growth firms, young high-growth firms. These firms are the job furnaces of modern economies. They hire more people, and they hire them faster than anybody else. And they include social enterprises. They're also particularly important because they hire more young people. So today, we need more of those young high-growth firms, and we need them to fire on all cylinders. The second reason is equally important. Innovation is humanity's tool set. In fact, it's humanity's only tool set to tackle the kind of problems, wicked problems, that none of us can solve on our own. And we have a few of those on our plate. And right now, and in the coming years, the really important work of innovation will be done by us as both local and global citizens, putting those big, hairy challenges on the table: climate change, child poverty, global health, the future of capitalism, in all their hairy complexity, and asking ourselves and each other, how are we going to solve this? And we've learned two important things in the recent economic mess. The first is that the world is much more interconnected than we could ever have imagined. And secondly, that our institutions are struggling to deliver the results that we want and need for this 21st century reality. So we're in this together. And much as we may wish otherwise, and much as we may look for shortcuts and magic bullets, these tough challenges will not be solved by a brilliant scientist or a visionary social entrepreneur or a charismatic politician or a generous philanthropist. Developing solutions to these challenges will require new coalitions of problem solvers, from science, from business, from social enterprise, from academe, from government, from community, spanning national boundaries, coming together, coalescing around a shared vision, and then doing the really hard work to radically come up with radical new solutions that are relevant both to our local communities and to the world at large. And the world really needs this kind of innovation, and there's no question that social entrepreneurs have an absolutely critical contribution to make because they're already working at the coalface of the tough stuff. Which brings me to the second point. The world's innovation landscape is changing rapidly, creating both enormous opportunities and enormous challenges. Yes, it's becoming more competitive and complex. The pace of change continues to accelerate. More countries are getting into the game, prioritizing innovation, investing in it, making innovation their national priorities. And the risk of vulnerable people everywhere falling further behind is bigger than it's ever been. But, and this is our opportunity, new capacities for innovation are also being developed in all parts of the world and in all key levers of the innovation process at a rate that is unprecedented in our history. Let's take them one by one. First, people, the innovators, if you will, and the people that help them succeed. They are the foundation because innovation is powered by people, committed, smart, entrepreneurial people. Many changes here. The simultaneous rise of India, China, Brazil, and others as knowledge economies is unprecedented because of the sheer new innovation capacity, number of knowledge workers being released flooding onto the world stage. Countries like Canada, of course, produce wonderfully educated, sophisticated innovation talent, but in very modest, some might say puny numbers. All of the world's innovation talent is also much more mobile than it's ever been. Hyper-connected innovators, including social entrepreneurs, can now work almost anywhere and still participate in collaborative knowledge and practitioner networks that span the globe. This leveling of the playing field is very challenging for most areas of commercial innovation. Information is more freely available. Customers can be found anywhere. Competition is everywhere. But for us as social entrepreneurs, we can now learn from a much bigger, much more interesting laboratory. We can support each other and learn from each other and from much more diverse experiences, solving our common problems. We can work together to develop metrics. We can share resources. We can scale solutions by mobilizing resources over a much larger geographies. This matters because innovation is the ultimate team sport. It's nourished in ecosystems, interconnected entrepreneurial communities that draw on local strengths and increasingly on virtual communities of interest. And our ecosystems must be connected to the local assets, but also pay attention to what's happening in global developments, because our economies meet in those global marketplaces. And because we also have learned that global developments can have very detrimental impacts on local economies, local environments, and local social conditions. That's both the opportunity and the curse of a hyper-connected world. There's nowhere to hide. But one more factor on the people front. An extraordinary talent force is being released onto the global stage today as women fully enter and beginning to take on more leadership roles in the world's innovation systems. In reality, women are contributing far below their capacity today to the world's innovation economy. This is true in most regions, and as just one indicator, in the world's most revered innovation mecca, Silicon Valley, women start or lead far fewer than 10% of the high-growth technology companies, and they receive a fraction of the capital their male peers receive. But women are rapidly becoming more educated everywhere. They're gaining more access to capital from microloans and up, and they're gaining influence in business, in government, in third sector organizations. They're leaders in social development and leaders in social enterprise everywhere. And as these worlds blend, the participation of women will change the global innovation landscape in ways we cannot yet imagine. But let's look at the second lever, the invention lever. The pipeline of ideas is growing and becoming much richer feedstock for progress because science, technology, and social invention boundaries are blurring, and absolutely amazing opportunities are emerging in these interstitial spaces of formerly siloed disciplines. Healthcare is a great example. We're seeing a compression of biological sciences and clinical practice. Information technology, and in particular wireless devices and increasingly sophisticated sensors, is transforming how we diagnose, treat, and monitor patient health in both fancy hospitals and in remote villages. And those technologies are doing much more. For the first time, they are allowing us to connect formal and informal or community-based caregiving systems and actually unleash social innovation across those boundaries. Of course, information technology is also reshaping retail, banking, education, often increasing access for populations that have been previously excluded. And social technologies are allowing customers, users, to help design new products and services, bringing their ideas into the invention pipeline. The third lever is markets. The US and Europe have traditionally been our first adopter markets. They've also been market makers, and so naturally, entrepreneurs tended to focus their energies there. But with economic challenges today and sluggish growth and a much more global universe, global entrepreneurs are increasingly paying attention and focusing their efforts in emerging and even frontier markets. And there, growth and an incredible entrepreneurial culture is fueling innovation that is starting to make its way back into the US and Europe in a so-called reverse innovation model. A totally different mindset is required to think about that stream. Fourth lever, of course, is capital, because just like people and ideas, money is on the move. And large amounts of it is now in new hands. So a new breed of investors is backing a new breed of global entrepreneurs in new places. The Silicon Valley Boys Club is breaking down. And yes, a new breed of investors is also backing change makers and social entrepreneurs as the impact investing movement is becoming much more global. And importantly, this movement is generating new tools and new financing instruments to mobilize private capital for public good. But perhaps more importantly, it is creating a mechanism for public and private investors to work together, pooling their expertise and their resources to develop solutions for our most persistent social challenges. And in combination with the growth of community finance solutions, crowdfunding, and other peer financing platforms, we will hopefully see capital more democratized, more readily available to entrepreneurs working outside of the typical hotspot markets, and also available to a much broader range of entrepreneurs, including women. Finally, social innovation. There's absolutely no question that social innovation is moving into the innovation mainstream, into the boardroom, into governments, into the entrepreneurial ecosystems and the finance world. The evidence is everywhere. Innovative companies are now recognizing that they need a social license to operate, and that that license is earned or lost in the harsh glare of consumer-driven transparency. And as a result, they are redesigning their already complex global supply chains and investing heavily in the communities in which they operate. It is no longer just corporate social responsibility, it's good business. The demand for public sector innovation is growing as cost-constrained governments are looking for efficiency and public sector leaders are seeking better outcomes and respond to the expectations of a more informed citizenry. And the world of both practitioners and policymakers are changing. Young, tech-savvy entrepreneurs are creating social businesses using market forces to drive social change, and social entrepreneurs are using technology to diffuse their solutions into a much larger marketplace. Public policy frameworks are straining under this new environment and have to adapt. And of course, new policies will increasingly be made with citizens and not for them. One fun trend is that the formal innovation sector, academic research with white labs and peer review, sophisticated corporate R&D labs, very important think tanks, are somewhat baffled by the growing popularity of grassroots maker and hacker movements. And yet, experts and citizen innovators are developing surprisingly productive peer communities. Closed and open innovation systems are negotiating much-needed pragmatic solutions and compromises around intellectual property, co-creation, and sharing value. Social innovation is also helping us to tackle systems-level innovation challenges, bringing new frameworks, design thinking, prototyping tools, and change lab processes to our collaborations, and those can be augmented by what we've learned from the scientific method and what we're learning from lean startup methodologies in technology. This is a shared critical contribution to innovation much more broadly. And it's also timely because given the challenges in front of us, we clearly must, in addition to our micro and mesoscale answers, focus our energies on developing macro-level solutions, rethinking and redesigning systems in all their interconnected messiness. Because system transformation is required if we're going to get ahead of potentially snowballing damage in areas such as healthcare, youth unemployment, or the environment, and achieve long-term sustainable solutions. Which brings me to the final point, innovating the future, and what is it going to take to create that future we want. All of these changes in the innovation landscape are challenging our mindsets, whether we're social entrepreneurs or working in the innovation system more broadly. They're also challenging our partnerships, our policies, our practices, and there's no question that we're exploring new territory and that it's not always comfortable. But then innovation has never been about comfortable. It's about charting a new course without a clear roadmap, without knowing the answer, admitting that we don't know the answer. And it asks us to balance what we know, being diligent about evidence and data, with what might be possible. Creating cohesion from diversity of experiences, diversity of strengths, because innovation, good innovation, requires that diversity to come up with truly new ways of thinking and doing, but it requires cohesion for action. We need a mindset that effectively integrates deeply expert knowledge, because the world is a complicated place, with emerging context, and a mindset that simultaneously builds both prosperity and resilience, and simultaneously mobilizing, not trading off, both the mechanisms of profit and the commitment of purpose. It requires a whole new leadership mindset in which we are all leaders, but in which our leadership is earned through our collaborations. As always, innovation also offers us a choice, a little bit of a binary, brutal choice. We can watch this changing landscape as a resistor or a spectator, or we can choose to participate and help shape it. It offers that same choice to everybody else, and we know some of their choices. And we're also aware that some of the choices that others make will actually have a significant impact on our future and our fate, particularly if we stand on the sidelines. Because innovation does its thing independent of how we choose to spend our time. Innovation also tests our courage because it takes time for the consequences, positive or negative, of innovation decisions to be felt. These timelines are much longer than a single political term, a CEO career, or sometimes even a single lifetime. Stem cells were discovered in Toronto 50+ years ago, and today we're on the cusp of that discovery revolutionizing medical therapies. But the benefit for patients will really only accrue over the next 50+ years. So innovation asks us to deal with the hard, immediate problems in front of us today, but to also take the long view, which is difficult, because our world has a very short attention span. It's an impatient place. But it's not just about what we choose today that might have positive or negative consequences in years or decades to come. It's also what we choose not to do today, because we took a short-term perspective that was easier. So the long view must ground us and bring us back to focusing on our common challenges and the things that matter to us in our shared future. And from an innovation perspective, that is the critical mindset question. What problem are we trying to solve, and why does it matter? Let's go back to traditional innovation language. The Harvard Business Review defines innovation as invention that creates value. Well, value for whom? As we plan for the future, we have to ask ourselves, what do we value in our families, in our social enterprises, in our communities, in our government, and collectively? Because it's what we value that will get us beyond just aligning our skills and our hard work. That is what will align our mindsets and our aspirations and making it possible for us to create the future we all want and that future generations deserve. But this is an extraordinary time in human history. We've never had so much innovation capacity at our fingertips. And all bets are on the problem solvers, the innovators, the curious, the creative, the relentless. People who care about the future, who have what it takes to make a difference to the quality of that future, and who are prepared to work with others to create that future. Thank goodness we're all here. Thank you.